Hey guys, welcome. Hat Tuesday, number 15, 1-5. Hope you guys are having a great day. I already got my man Josh in the audience. Josh, welcome. Good to see you. Just wanted to say your top hat is looks like it's coming out really nicely. I really wish you luck. I think it's all magic, to be honest, right? When I see a hat being created, it's pretty much just magic to me. So it's like just want to make sure that you know that people are paying attention and watching you do your thing. And yeah, man, it's really exciting to see. So thanks for sharing your hat journey with us. So yeah, man, really good show lined up for you. I will just wait. We have Robert that's going to join us. Hopefully, he'll join us soon. Otherwise, just really jazzed. Obviously, if you've been paying attention to the channel, for recently, you guys know I am heading out to London, right? I'll be out to the UK. My flight leaves tonight. My main man, James, good day, sir. Good to see you again. My fellow Virginian, hopefully you're having a great day. We got Paul here. Paul, man, I can't wait to meet up with you, over in across the pond. So, I'll be flying. I'll be touching down. I'm scheduled to touch down sometime around 6:30 London time. So, looking forward to that. It'll probably take me an hour to get in. I'm gonna plan to take the public transport, the train in. So, yeah, Paul says, yeah, meeting this week. Hey, looking forward to it, my friend. Both you and Ian. So, yeah, can't wait. Should be a lot of fun. And yeah, it's just like I said, a lot of exciting things. Like we're closing out the year here. Hopefully, you guys are all having a nice, wonderful close of the year, right? Lots of excitement, right, for the new year and new things, new goals, right? I think it's a good time during the end of the year process. I don't know if you guys all very similar, but I always think about like trying to do a little bit more reflection, kind of like set some goals, right? Obviously, I talked about some of the things, I want to try to do for the new year. One of which is lose some weight, right? But that'll come after I have the fish and chips with Ian and Paul in the pint, right? So after that. But yeah, just to kind of set some goals and just be what, obviously Thanksgiving is past, but you can still be thankful for everything you've experienced this year, right? Even if it wasn't the best thing in the world, right? Some of us have had, some really trying 2025s, right? If that's your case, then hopefully 2026 treats you a little bit better, right? And I always believe like it pays to be an optimist, right? It really does pay to be an optimist. There's just I don't know, pessimism's okay, but I think there's really good reasons. There's really good reasons for finding ways or finding the means to be optimistic about the future. So hopefully that's something that you guys are able to do. And it's one of those things. Like I said, it's I'm excited. Paul here says, haha, I was just thinking fish and chips and weight loss. Not so sure that will work, although I am sure we will walk some of it off. Hey, you know what? I am okay with doing that kind of math, right? So it's like, oh yeah, we definitely walked off those fish and chips and then some. We probably should just have a second pint. Like I'm able to, like, my brain allows me to make that computation and be okay with it. It's one of the neat things of my brain has allowed for me. So yeah, Paul, thank you. I appreciate it. It's always good to have mates, right? That kind of have the same line of thinking. It's like, yeah, obviously we walked it up and then some. We should just stop here and have another beer. So yeah, or whatever else you fancy, maybe it's a cappuccino, maybe it's a latte of some sort, whatever your drink or your vice of choice is, right? But yeah, it's hard to believe that we're already in December, right? So we're looking at December 9th, man. Speaking of which, one of my brothers, Willie, has a birthday today. So happy 55th birthday to my brother Willie. Over in New York, and hopefully you guys are ready. I'll come visit pretty soon and spend some time with my family in New York. And that's really what it's all about. We talked about, right, the whole purpose of this whole channel is to kind of build kind of an online family, right? Obviously we're not blood related. Well, some of us are, right? I have my nephews on here. I have one of my brothers on here. So I do have some blood relationship. I even have my sister here. But in general, we're not related, but it doesn't mean we can't treat each other like kin. So, I think, obviously maybe that's a little bit sappy of me, but, I kind of think of it as kind of an online family, right? Or you kind of just check each other out, see how we're doing. I think I got a message from Robert. Robert may be having trouble getting in here. I just want to make sure that he has the ability to get in there. Let's see. He says he thinks he's in. See you. I'm just writing a message to Robert. Let me resend him the link. That way, it could be that I just goofed it up. It's been known to happen. Let's see. Use this. Let's see if I can get Robert in here. Hopefully, I didn't screw anything up with that previous link, but it's very possible. So yeah, pardon me while I just communicate with Robert there. I usually, just to give you guys a heads up on my process, usually what I'll do is I'll send out a link to my board of directors, right? My inner circle. That way, if anybody wants to jump on camera, they're able to do so. But again, I don't know. It could be StreamYard having a connection. You never know what's going on. So, I just want to make sure I give Robert a new link, and just in case I sent him the wrong one. And what happens is sometimes when you go through messages, you kind of see like you don't get the right link, you don't get the latest link, right? So I think it's a unique link for every single stream. So we'll just wait on Robert here and see if he's able to join us. But yeah, speaking of Robert, we got him on here. Robert, how you doing, friend?
I'm in. That last link worked.
Okay, excellent. Like I said, I'll apologize ahead of time. It could be that I sent you an erroneous link. I'm fairly new. Even though sometimes I feel I feel like I impress myself with my ability to handle some of the technology. There's always something that humbles me right away. So yeah, Josh says there we go. And Robert, I'd be remiss if I didn't go and have you do a little bit of a hat check for our audience here. So you can talk a little bit about the hat that you got on. It looks really sharp.
Thank you. I thought I probably mentioned before that I was a hat collector before I started learning how to make them. So I have a lot of hats, and most of them are not mine.
Right.
But I thought this morning, as I was getting ready to log on, I thought, well, I should actually wear a hat that I've made. So this is one that I've made.
Yeah.
It's probably a couple of years old, and it's a 100% beaver, FEPSA in their 95 gram, nice. Their light dress weight. It's a beautiful felt. It's the for hat makers out there, it's the felt that most closely resembles a vintage feel of any felt that you can purchase today. They're beautiful.
This is so obviously thanks to Paul, I've gotten to feel a couple of the FEPSA felts, and it really does make a big difference. It's like once you feel it, and that's why I really love interacting with you hatters on here that have that experience with the varieties of different materials, because before that, I guess I really didn't appreciate the difference between a FEPSA or some other felt, or even the weights of the felts.
It really does make a big difference. And then, I think that's probably the most foundational thing for a hat maker is to understand felts, how they feel, how they react. And so I encourage new hatters to experiment, just even if you're not a Western hat maker,
right?
Buy a 220 gram or a 240 gram Western weight just to get the feel of it.
Yeah.
And then you have to add on top of that the amount of stiffener that the factory has put into it, so there's just huge range of factors that go into how you work with the felt, how the felt reacts.
Right. Yeah. And obviously the more educated one is as a hatter, the better you are to educate the consumer, right? Especially the new consumer that they might be buying their very first fine hat from yourself. And in which case, now you get the onus is on you. The responsibility would kind of fall on you to kind of say, well, what are you looking for, right? And that's really the beautiful part of getting a custom hat.
Yeah, it's that part of because I've um, it's changed now. I'm about to start my 8th year, so my
congrats.
clientele has changed. But initially, my target market was new hat wearers, or perhaps people that were hat wearers but were venturing upping their game, so to speak. And I wanted to be able to provide them with a top quality custom made hat at a price that, you know, as close as possible approximated that of an off the shelf Stetson. And so it's like, it's that part of it's like, we don't know what we don't know. And so for a new hatter, a big part of the process was sitting them down and asking them what, like, not just what style you want, but how will you wear this hat? What activities, you know, it's like, are you, because there's a vast difference between a Sunday go to church hat and the hat that you want to go hiking in. And it all, you know, so then we could discuss, I stock a huge number of felts, and so I could bring out all of the different types and weights of felt, and they could actually feel them, you know, and it that was the fun part, because it was a real sense of discovery for them.
My favorite part is that you guys really are, so you guys are really great students, right? Obviously, we heard about your journey, right? Obviously, Art Fawcett was very instrumental in your hat journey. And I'm sure there were several others that you've mentioned as well, but I know Art Fawcett was the one that jumped out in my mind. I'm like, wow, what a tremendous lineage to be able to say that you got to kind of learn from the great Art Fawcett. And honestly, the even better thing is not just you guys are great students, you guys are also great teachers. You guys have hearts of teachers, and that really is kind of the way you guys pay it forward. And are able to share the benefits of being such great students.
I was thinking about that in the last couple of days, because there's in a conversation with a fellow that aspires to be a hat maker. And I mean, it's only been in the last couple of years that there's been actual resources for people, for new hatters to tap into. But previous to that, it's like, if you talk to any hatter that's been in the business for any length of time, and I still consider myself a newbie, you know, but even for me, to begin with, the only way forward was trial and error. You could comb the internet and look for videos, but generally they weren't instructional in nature. They were promotional. You know, so you could watch them do it, but there was no explanation of exactly what they were doing, why they were doing it, and often the demonstrator would be truncated, because it's, you know, they're trying to fit it into a X number of minutes as promotion. So so I think, and this is, you know, and I'm guilty of it, but it's
no
like
judgment zone here, Robert.
in my day, we had to walk 10 miles to school. That was uphill both ways, and 12 months of the year it was snowing. You know, I you know, or I guess it said that the old guy, get off my lawn, you know, that I work against it, but I do succumb. But I think amongst, you know, certainly amongst the veteran hatters out there, there was much more of a can-do attitude, because that's all there were. You know, there was nothing else. There was no, you know, other than the editor book, you know, there was no manuals that you could go to. I taught myself to be an auto mechanic, and back in the 70s, and it, you know, at least we had books. You know, there was the old Chilton's manuals. There, you know, and I joke with people that complain, in that it's like, I was thrilled if I found a book, and even more thrilled if it had pictures. Now you've got the internet. You know, now you've got YouTube. so that really applies to hat makers as well. And
Yeah.
so the downside of that, though, is, and I don't know if it's generational or just a general sign of the times, I think new hatters in general, and I'm sure there's multiple exceptions out there,
Right.
but in general, that can-do attitude has been lost to a degree because on our Facebook page, the new hatters are much more prone to ask multiple questions,
Right.
rather than diving in.
Right.
You know, they want to they want to remove the risk from it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas, I mean, even when I started, I had a stack of felts in the corner, and they were the ones that I'd ruined.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just, you know, I was sad or angry when it happened.
Right.
But it's like, what other, you know, that was the only way forward, was to dive in and do it.
Right.
And I toss it in the corner and hope at some point in the future I could find a way to make use of it, you know?
Right.
But that was the only way. And now it seems as though that there's an aversion to the risk.
Correct. It's a fear. I think it's a fear of failure sometimes.
Yeah. And yeah, you know, I think it's, we'll talk about this later when we talk about the death of the hat. And it's, I think our human mind wants to find like the reason for something. You know, a phenomenon happens and we want to find the one reason. And often it's never just the one reason.
Right.
It's a multitude of small reasons that accumulate and produce this. And so, I mean, it could be that felts are a lot more expensive now than when I began.
Yeah.
You know, just seven.
Right. The cost of experimentation may have like gotten up there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do have to admit that. Although I've never done a study on it. It's purely anecdotal, but it seems to me
sure.
That
it's something very analogous to like the college scenario, right? The idea of, you know, back in the day, you used to be able to afford to go find yourself, meaning take a bunch of classes that maybe, you know, you would, I'm going to just test this out. But now the cost of college obviously has risen, well, the cost of everything has risen. So now exploring and finding yourself in college is a very risky proposition, a very expensive one, at least.
Yeah. It's like I put myself through university in the late 60s.
Right.
I had a part-time job in the cafeteria. I was the pot washer, and I worked from 5 to 9, making $1.07 an hour.
Yeah.
So it would be like 20 hours a week.
Right.
Which is 80 hours a month.
Right.
I lived off of that.
Right.
I paid rent. I didn't live at home. I paid rent. I fed myself. I ran a car.
Right.
And then my summer job, I saved. Well, I used that to pay tuition.
Yeah. But
I earned enough that 2 years after I left university, I bought a house. It was a decent down payment on a house.
Right.
And my mortgage was $205 a month. I was only making $600 a month, so it was a chunk of money.
Yeah.
But it was doable. If someone wanted to, and I'm not sure today that. How
it may not be the same. Yeah.
How motivated you are. I'm not. It's not doable.
Right. Right.
And
Josh himself said, he talked about, he had so many videos that he used to help him. Obviously, I'm sure a lot of those were videos that you created, Robert. But he said, I think I like the way Josh is thinking here. We have some hatters on here. You guys may be able to collaborate and create kind of like, kind of a new manual, right? A new how-to that maybe, obviously, you're going to talk about the Hatless Jack book. It's not a book about hat making per se, but you guys have consumed a fair amount of literature out there between all the hatters that we had on this channel. And maybe, just maybe, you guys are able to identify the gaps, meaning what are the gaps that are left in the materials that might still exist and how you guys can kind of bridge that gap. I'd love to see that. I only wish I could contribute something, but I just love to watch with the popcorn.
There's a good chance that my contract is up at the with the March edition, the articles I write for Hat Talk magazine.
Sure.
And it looks like I'm going to sign another contract for another year.
Oh, fantastic.
Because I still have stuff to write about it. But I forget, I think I have 27 issues in their archives.
That's tremendous.
And it does go sequentially.
Right.
And not all of them, well, they're all hat related, and I think 95% of them are instructional. And so I'm thinking of withdrawing that, and like there's a book there, there's 200 pages on the A to Z of hat making.
Right. I'm excited by the possibility of there being, like, again, it might not work out as cleanly, but just the fact that that idea, just the possibility of the idea sounds fantastic to me. Well, anyway, Robert, I don't want to I know you have materials that you want to share. What I'm going to do is basically, I guess I'll ask you if you have anything that you want to show on screen. If you want to bring that up, I'll just make sure that it gets on screen. I just want to make sure that you have all the time that you have to cover everything you want to cover for today, because I'm really excited to hear about this book.
It's I've gone through the book, and rather than trying to cover the whole book, I have some, I don't know what you want to call it. I've condensed my thoughts.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how much material I have, but how I envisioned it is just like we're doing, is to treat it, rather than me doing a presentation for the next hour. I want it to be conversational.
Absolutely. I'd love that.
With what I say, if something pops into your head or a question, it's like, absolutely interject.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. But the book grew out of it, was on the Facebook page, and it wasn't it wasn't an in-depth discussion, but it did come up about the why of the death of the hat.
Yeah.
And of course, the first thing that popped up was John F. Kennedy was blamed. Right. It's like it was him, which takes me back to the what I said a few minutes ago about, it's like we as humans want to find the reason.
Correct.
And very seldom is there the reason. It's a series of, I don't know, a series of unfortunate events.
Right.
And then eventually, and then all of a sudden, all these little fissures manifest as an event.
Right. And
the hat is dead.
Right.
And Kennedy was kind of the most popular person. So it's like, okay, well, it was him.
Right.
That's not the case. So there was this brief discussion on the Facebook page, and a milliner from Ireland, Lena Stein, she popped up and she said, "Have you read Hatless Jack?" And I responded and said, "No, I've never even heard of it." And she said, "It's a fun read. Check it out." So I did, and I bought it maybe 8 months ago now.
Yeah.
And then it sat on my desk.
Yeah. Right.
Eventually got buried under papers. And one day I was cleaning up and I came across it and I thought, damn it, I should read that book.
Right.
And so I did, just in the last couple of weeks. And it was a great, fun read.
Yeah.
So the name of the book is Hatless Jack.
I love the name.
And the tagline is the president, the fedora, and the death of the hat. Right. And it's written by Neil Steinberg.
Yeah.
Who is a columnist columnist and freelance writer. He's an American. He writes for the Chicago Sun-Times, and I think he's written for the New York Times. And so it has sort of a not an investigative journalist, but like it's a well-written, lengthy newspaper column.
Yeah.
It has a breezy, chatty quality to it rather than, this scientific study of why the hat died. It's a fun read.
Yeah.
I bought it on Amazon, and I checked out last night. There's multiple copies available on eBay.
Yeah.
And with shipping, you can pick one up for anywhere from, talking in US dollars, from 10 to $15.
Yeah. Yeah. And very reasonable.
Very reasonable. And it's a fun read.
Yeah.
It does. Oh, the other thing, it does go back. It was written 20 years ago.
Right. But
no new information has arisen. Nothing has changed from 2005. As I said, it's a lighthearted investigation into the death of the hat, and it uses the brief Kennedy presidency as the through line for the discussion.
Right.
And so it's partially identifying the death of the hat, and then also investigating why Kennedy was named the victim or the perpetrator.
Right.
So that, and then so the first part of today is we'll cover the history of the hat and some anecdotes from JFK's involvement.
Yeah.
And then there's also in the book some really interesting anecdotes about hat wearing in society. And I they were maybe the most fun part of the book. So
yeah.
But it begins talking about how, well, actually here, I'll read this. There's a quote, because this is,
absolutely.
For most men in the 20th century, wearing a hat was an integral part of the wardrobe. We see, it's like, that was true of my dad. He never left the house without a hat on his head.
Correct.
And my dad was not dapper. He wore a suit to work as he was a salesman, but I think he owned two suits. Right. It wasn't like he had a wardrobe.
Right.
So it's written, this goes back, this is a quote from an essayist, unnamed, from 1918. The average man has become so accustomed to the habit of wearing his hat that he does not feel that he is himself when out of doors without it.
Correct.
And based on, street scene pictures from the 20s and into the 30s, it's like, yeah, you did leave the house without a hat on your head. There's those somewhat aerial shots looking down, and
right.
There's not a bare head to be seen.
Yeah. One would lack credibility, probably, if you were going to do business. So a salesman, I'm just imagining the salesman looking the part is right. You may not get to pitch your wares if you don't look the part, so you kind of have to, if the hat's not on there, you already might get a door slammed on you,
Yes.
I'm just thinking about that, especially during that time.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. And then there's another quote that is 10 years later, 1929, in a man's a style guide, a fashion guide for men. Not one man in 10,000 would risk being the butt of ridicule by failing to conform to the wearing of a hat.
Right.
So exactly as you stated.
Right.
A man truly would be subject or would put himself at risk for ridicule,
right,
if he didn't wear a hat.
Yeah, and we do that, we do that to each other. Guys will check each other. Anybody that's, when we get to our age, we've been around our fair number of other guys, and it could be on a whole bunch of things. Usually, what you don't know how to wrench on a car, you don't know how to do that. I'd imagine back then the guys might have been like, "Hey, what are you doing? Do you need a couple bucks? I'll loan you a couple bucks to get you a hat."
I didn't include it here, but there was a humorous anecdote about a salesman taking the train to an appointment, and he had the window open, and a gust of wind took his hat, and so here he was headed for his appointment without his hat. He didn't have any money, but he had some money that was entrusted to him by his boss.
Yeah.
And so the first thing he did when the train arrived was he found a men's shop, and he bought himself a new hat, because there was no way in hell that he was going to go to this appointment hatless.
That's right.
It would have killed the deal before he walked into the meeting.
Yeah.
So the death of the hat was attributed to Kennedy, which 1960. That's kind of the date. Right. But this is the part that I didn't know, because you look at street scenes like into the 30s and the 40s, and it was still, the hat was ubiquitous.
Right.
But the peak year for hat manufacturers in the United States, 1903.
Wow. Tremendously early.
And from there, the economic statistics show, certainly in the beginning, but this slow, inexorable decline in hat sales.
In other words, a good 57 years prior to the, or 58 years prior to the inauguration, because I believe Kennedy was inaugurated in 1961. Yeah. So we're talking about almost 60 years prior to Kennedy getting into office, was the peak of hat buying. Wow, it's amazing.
And by the 1950s, hat sales were in free fall.
Yeah.
And then by 1960, the dress hat sales in the United States were barely half of what they were in 1950. So that decade of 1950 to 1960 saw hat sales halve.
Right.
So blaming the death of the hat on Kennedy it's clearly misplaced.
Right.
Now it's kind of this convergence, because it's true, absolutely true. Kennedy did not wear hats.
Right.
He disliked them.
Right.
And not the least is because Kennedy had a full head of hair.
Right. Yeah. He had a famous coif.
Yes, of which he was very proud of, and quite vain.
Yeah.
So the last thing he wanted to do was to hide this glorious mop of hair that he had.
Yeah. So it sounds like in many ways it was like Kennedy may have been a symptom of a result of the decline rather than the cause.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. That's bang on. And contrary, it was to it's a falsehood. Kennedy did wear a hat to his inauguration.
Right. The Kavanaugh.
He wore it to the actual festivities. He wore a top hat.
Right.
Or rather to say, he took a top hat with him, because it spent the majority of the day in his hands. Not very much time on the top of his head.
Yeah.
But he did have it. And the reason he got blamed is because, here you have this trend where you have hat sales tanking. Right. And I got in on it a little bit, but being Canadian and not yet a teenager.
Right.
Not fully cognizant of it, but even to me up in Canada, it's like Kennedy was a big deal.
Yeah.
Just the whole Camelot and, the mystique around, there's good looking, youngish presenting president.
Catholic, already meaning a deviant, right? We're talking about in a situation where you don't have, he is the first, and I want to say he's still the only Catholic. I could be wrong about that, but he definitely was the first Catholic.
Yes, exactly. Glamorous wife, good looking, war hero,
right?
Extremely well spoken. There was a real buzz around Kennedy and his presidency.
Right.
So you could see kind of the correlation is like that the hat making industry desperately wanted to get him on side because both him and Jackie were style arbiters. And if they could get him on side, maybe they could stop the decline.
Right.
But instead, Kennedy was like, no, so it's kind of their, they'd lost their last best hope and kind of crushed them in many ways.
Yeah. Says a lot about Kennedy as well, right? Let's, I mean, again, Robert, anything that I say, obviously I'm conjecturing. I don't, a lot of things I have are opinions. And then obviously the audience, I will tell you the same thing. I'm an expert in my own opinion, but it doesn't mean it's right. But, Kennedy, when you think about like his dad made, and again, I don't know how much of this is fact versus allure, but Kennedy's dad was somebody that made money in the bootlegging, right? So again, I don't want to put that forward as fact because I don't know that for a fact. I know it's something that's very much talked about, but essentially you're talking about a like new money. So the idea is this is a son of a man that by all intents and purposes is considered new money, right? So if it's true that he made his wealth in the bootlegging industry, well, it would only make sense that those kids are kind of like they're not gonna play by the rules. So very much one would expect, maybe you wouldn't expect it, but it wouldn't be surprising to hear Jack say, no, I'm not doing. I know that's what everybody else did. I'm not doing that.
Yeah, and he was a man that had a high degree of assuredness about himself.
Right. Self-confidence.
He was a war hero after all,
Go ahead, Robert. I'm sorry.
There's a quote here from it was in a letter that Jerry Rolnick, who was the head of the Bayer Rolnick Hat Corporation before Resistol bought them out.
Yeah.
He sent a letter to Kennedy early on in his presidency, and he says to Kennedy, "What is the matter with you? How can I support a man that is going to put me out of business?"
Right.
And then there was another William McKenna of Hatco of America. He sent Kennedy a letter and implored him, wear a hat, anybody's hat. It wasn't he wasn't trying to solicit Kennedy to wear his hats. He didn't care. It was just like, wear a damn hat.
Yeah.
And then over his presidency was very brief, but he received countless emissaries from the hat industry, from the hat makers of America.
Right.
They were unionized. His Secretary of Labor, the name escapes me, but his actual Secretary of Labor was the lawyer for many of the big corporations in the big hat making companies.
Right.
So
big hat. I like to call them big hat.
Yeah. But even that had no effect.
Yeah.
But many of the hat makers, they would send emissaries, pleading with him. They would send him hats to wear.
Right.
But Kennedy just rebuffed all of them.
Yeah.
And then Kennedy had a group of war buddies that he had served with, and they stayed together, stayed in touch in the years after the war. And one of them ended up working as a regional representative of one of the major hat makers.
Wow.
And he was overheard in a conversation he was having with JFK, and it said, "We are dying in the business without you wearing a hat.
Yeah.
Can't you just put on one now and then?"
Right.
And this is, the president responded, "I've tried wearing hats, and I'm just not the type.
Right.
When I put one on, it feels as though I'm wearing a tent.
Right.
Look," he says, "I'll carry one with me from time to time.
Right.
Would that be enough?"
Oh, wow.
And it's not the answer the friend wanted, but
Yeah.
it was clear that was the only answer he was going to get. That was the only concession available.
Yeah.
So he smiled weakly and nodded.
Yeah. Interestingly, Robert, one thing that I wanted to add here, and again, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this was something Ian mentioned that I had no idea of. So I want to bring this up forward because I want to repeat it because I feel that it bears some significance here. One of the things that one hears about Kennedy is the idea was once they conceded and said, okay, they couldn't get him to wear the hat. The way I understood it, and again, I could be wrong about this being factual, was that he agreed to kind of pose strategically with world leaders while having the hat in his hand.
It didn't mention that in
Didn't
the
mention
book.
that. Okay, yeah.
But there was one section where Kennedy was I'm not sure if Kennedy was with him or it was just a picture of Khrushchev, but Khrushchev always wore a hat,
right?
Often a Homburg, and the president of the hat making company saw the picture and exploded because it's like, a Russian can wear a damn hat, but our president can't.
Correct. Correct. The funny part, Robert, is that what Ian mentioned was, and this was something that, according to the lore, again, you already mentioned that this wasn't covered in the book, but according to the lore, Kennedy had agreed to show the label of the hat, meaning, so when he got photographed, he would have it out so that you could see, let's say, Kavanaugh, prominently in the label, in the lining. But what Ian told me was that actually is considered rude behavior. I did not know this. And I don't know if you've heard this as well, Robert.
It wasn't in the book, and I'm not aware of that, but I would doubt that Kennedy would agree to that because that would be showing favoritism to one brand.
Yes. And great point.
At that time in 1960, there were still a lot of large hat making companies out there.
Yeah.
And I think that Kennedy would be loath to show favoritism.
Yeah.
Because then he'd have all the other ones coming to him like,
it's a great point. Great point.
What's going on here? And I think going back to what he said to his friend is the most they could hope for is there would be a picture snapped with Kennedy holding the hat.
Right.
The other thing too is that Kennedy loved to be, I guess he loved to be loved by the people. And he often, he preferred to travel in convertibles.
Correct.
Because in that way, he was he thought, I'm much more available, much more accessible to the people. And he loved sitting in the back seat of a convertible. And, because it's hard to imagine in this day and age, but back then if Kennedy was going to be out, there would be 100,000 people lining the sidewalks.
Well, right.
That's the kind of buzz that there was around his presidency. And also I think a sign of the times where I think, this is conjecture, but presidents were more, the office was more revered at the time. It had yet to be tainted.
Right.
So people did really hold the president in high regard, and Kennedy in particular. And so he thought that the wearing of a hat in some small way put something between him and the people.
Yeah.
Whereas when he's in the convertible, bareheaded, waving to the crowd, he was there. It was more casual, less formal.
Yeah.
And that's the presentation that he preferred.
Right. And this is coming off the heels of, right, the post-World War II boom that certainly the U.S. experienced. Obviously, it wasn't just the U.S., but that kind of elevated the office, I think, even more because literally it would be hard to argue that there was a more powerful man at that time than the president of the United States. And some people would argue it's still that way, but certainly post-World War II would probably be the peak of U.S. Kind of, I don't even know if the word dominance, but prominence. Let's just say prominence, if not prominence. And so Kennedy, he just happened to be coming around when, wow, we're still kind of riding high from from the 50s and all the prosperity that we experienced post-World War II.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Europe was still literally digging themselves out.
Correct. Go ahead, Robert. I didn't mean to.
I want to mention something here, but going back to what I just the quote from Kennedy around, he just didn't feel right with this thing on his head, and it's a very common refrain that I've heard from new hat wearers that have come to me over the years, and it's if you're not used to wearing a hat and all of a sudden you put this thing on your head, I'm sure you might know it as a psychologist, there's a term for it, but it's out of proportion to the actuality, because even if we have a stingy brim on our head, it still feels, it's like, oh my God, I have this enormous appendage of, so what Kennedy said is it's a very common human response, and then out of that is that I encourage people that come to me because they tend to want shorter crowns and narrower brims because they want to wear a hat, but they want to avoid the thought that they have this enormous, and just encourage them, kind of nudge them. It's like, well, no, you can go a little wider on the brim, and it's like you can go a little, and they're like, oh, I don't know, And
I'm an example. I'm a living example because I still favor the stingy brim, but now I'm getting a little bit out there. Again, I don't think any of my hats have a 3-inch brim. Maybe my boater, but I doubt that even that one's 3 inches. But obviously you can get down to 4 inches and beyond, and that's really out there.
Yeah, that at 4 inches, even for me, it's like, I start bumping into things.
Right. Is the one that you're wearing, is that 3 inches on your head right now?
I think it is. It's at the very least, it's 2 7/8, and it might be 3.
Yeah.
But the other interesting aspect of that is that having been in business this long, is like I have repeat customers.
Yeah.
And there's this, and it's like, it's not anecdotal. Okay, maybe the sample size is not large, but it's the evidence is unrefutable, because the next time people come in, they get a little wider on the brim and maybe a little taller on the crown. It's like okay, because now they've become acclimated to this thing on their head. And okay, so they're emboldened to try, okay, well, maybe, I can go a little wider.
Yeah.
So Kennedy's response is a very standard human response, to people, and I think that's the well, related to that is that my wife and I, we never go to the house without our hat, and so we're like, we've lived in our town for 33 years now.
Yeah.
And so we're recognized because of our hats.
Right. It's your identity.
It truly is part of it. And so it's like we get greeted because we get greeted as if we're known, even
Right.
though we're not, because we're recognized because of our hats. And
Yeah.
so it's like, oh, hey, hi, how you doing?
Right.
Or if we happen to go out without a hat on our head, we'll be admonished for, we didn't recognize you. You didn't have your hats on,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
sort of thing. But I forget my point. But like, so it's like, I truly, at this point, I truly feel not fully dressed without a hat
Correct.
on my head.
Correct.
But we'll also get comments, like, oh, nice hat. I love your hat. I wish I could wear a hat.
Right. And I get that too.
There's this cohort that it's like they love the look, they love looking at me, and they appreciate the hat, but
Right.
there's this gap where they can't see themselves wearing the hat.
Right.
And so I have this belief, again, unscientific, that there's a lot more hat wearers out there, or that would be hat wearers if they would just give it a chance. But the thought, like Kennedy, of having this tent on their head stops them.
Right.
So they never get past the thought, the resistance, and deny themselves the experience, the fun of being a hat wearer. Oh, and maybe equally important, the utility of being a hat wearer.
That's correct.
Because in their thought, it's like, oh, that's not me.
Right.
And it's like, it's an irrational, self-limiting belief, in my opinion.
It's amazing. Yeah, I think it's amazing. And then my friend James Bond here. I don't know if you met James Robert, but yes, I am friends with this gentleman, James Bond. Maybe not the James Bond, but a James Bond. Quite a spiffy dresser. You might catch him on Facebook. Has quite a collection, and he's one of those gentlemen that dresses up to the nine. I believe he said, "I would like to see 5." I'm assuming that meant 5 inches, a 5-inch brim. I'm sure it exists. That 5 inches is really out there. That really would cause some. Now you start really competing with the shoulders, maybe at that point, or at least my shoulders. Josh says, "I always talk about the utility of a hat, then the fashion of the hat." Yes. Remember, Paul, our good friend Paul, got into hats because of a health issue.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So, that was a necessity. It wasn't a thing that was a fashion statement. It was like, my health depends on it. And then James says, "I would like to see many men wear vintage hats and classic menswear." Yeah, it would be nice. It's one of those things where I'm like, I think Robert hit the nail right on the head, in that sometimes they're almost seeking permission. They're like, "Tell me I can do this." And I'll tell them, what's stopping you? It's only because, I don't know. I believe, because obviously in talking to the folks that live across the pond, right? Paul and Ian that say that in the UK, and I'll find out pretty soon, if there's a much more conservative push, that there's that pressure to not wear out their colors. And we in the US kind of feel like we're a little bit more loose with our rules, but it goes to show you that it still exists here, right? There's a lot of folks that feel they can't do this, or else they're gonna break some sort of unwritten rule if I go out in a hat.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, it is fascinating psychologically. Let's see here. Paul has a comment. "Robert, this is great insight and really interesting. Thank you." Thank you, Paul. I appreciate you providing the commentary, because I feel like sometimes when we have these discussions, we're kind of like, it's like we want to see some of this feedback. So I always love that you guys always provide that feedback. Josh says, "In Korea, ball caps and bucket hats are popular amongst the younger crowd. I would like to expose them more to wide brims in the future." I would love that. Yeah, I would love that. It goes to show you the power of culture and pressure. Even if it's not real pressure, it's perceived pressure. It might as well be real pressure if people perceive it to be. And I think that's when some of our hat community, we could really do well for our community by just giving people permission, right? As if they needed it, but sometimes they just want to hear, what do you think? I'm like, yeah, I think you look great. This is not difficult to pull off. I'll give you a hat. It's like sometimes, right? And I am giving away a hat once I get to 100 subscribers and I'm hoping that it might be their first hat, and right, with no cost to them, they can go and see if it's a hat. Wearing a hat is as big of a deal as they might think in their head. I promise you, it's not as big of a deal. And you might get into that camp of like, I'll never go without one now.
What would be a really fun thing to add to that?
Yeah.
Would be to say for the first 30 days, keep a hat diary.
Yeah.
Where they write down both their thoughts and feelings as they go about their day with a hat on their head.
Yeah.
What is their inner dialogue?
Yeah.
And then secondly, report on any external dialogue.
Correct.
How do you perceive people reacted to you? What did they say? Like,
right.
It would be really interesting to have that, and you could do a show on it,
Yeah. In psychology, we call that the think aloud protocol, right? When they want to get at what you're thinking, that what they'll do is they'll have a training session where you just practice saying exactly what you're thinking. And then once you get comfortable enough, they'll expose the stimulus to you and then see, have you think aloud, meaning talk aloud your thoughts. Obviously, there's going to be some folks that are going to be a little bit more guarded still, but the idea is to get the person as comfortable as they possibly can be, thinking out loud, and then you can really start seeing what's happening, or at least to get a better idea of what's happening in real time as folks are going through this process and interacting with the community. I love that idea, Robert.
And because I would, it's that you using it in group work, and it's to encourage people to sort of ask the question. It's like, I think we've all had that experience where we have a question and then we judge it, think, oh, that's a stupid. I'm I'm not going to voice that. And then but what we would use to get past that is like, if you're thinking that thought, guaranteed there's other people in the group thinking that thought, so you have the courage to voice it.
That is
because there's a whole bunch of other people that want the answer. So with the new hat wearer and they're putting their thoughts to paper and then doing a show on it, there'd be lots of people out in your audience kind of with the same thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can put it out on the table, and then when it's out on the table, then you can actually talk about it.
Absolutely. And I'd be remiss if I didn't read this comment here. James mentioned, I received many compliments when wearing a vintage hat and a classic suit, especially the hats. And that's I think inherent in a lot of our discussion is the power of compliments. I feel like the fragrance industry and the fashion industry in general is powered by the power of compliments. When somebody says, wow, you look really good, or you smell really good, you look really sharp. I know, like, as when we get into adulthood, we think that we're sometimes we fool ourselves in thinking that we're immune to the power of that. But I got to imagine that somebody like Kennedy, who was a good looking guy, must have heard so many compliments on his hair and his appearance that he's like, why would I mess with this? I would potentially be reducing my compliments.
Yeah.
And if you have a sweetheart, you already know the power of compliments. Compliments might as well be the currency of love. Robert, I'm gonna let you get to the next thing, but this is I love this discussion.
I just kind of to close the Kennedy part in a sense that so it's really it was really unfair to pin it on Kennedy, because change was afoot long before Kennedy came on the scene.
Right.
And it was this tide that none of the industry leaders could stem.
Right.
and I mean the other interesting anecdote here is that the leaders of the hat industry, they couldn't even get the workers in their factories to wear
Yeah.
hats. That's
Right.
how strong the trend was.
Right.
So you can't pin it on Kennedy, you know.
Right.
And there was also a totally unscientific, but there was a little paragraph in the book that talked about how like as industries slow down, and I not too strong to say that as they begin to die,
Right.
profits plummet,
Correct.
promotional material plummets because they don't have the money.
Right.
And so it compared the dollar amount of promotional material that the hat manufacturers were putting out, and
Right.
it was declining. So it's like, not only do you have it sort of dying in the general population, but the
Yeah.
hat people aren't putting any money into pumping it up. Now you could make
Yeah.
an argument that, well, what, you know, it's like you can't command the tide not to come in, you know. It's like the tide
Right.
is coming. So that might be a silly argument, but it was
Right.
still the hat manufacturers played their part in allowing the trend to continue and pick up.
Yeah.
And the Kennedy fallacy, it persisted because it was easy, you know. That was, in a sense, okay, we can hang our hat on it because it was
Right.
there was two other reasons put forward in the book.
Yeah.
And again,
Ooh, this is juicy. I can't wait for this part.
well, men coming home from World War II
Yes.
wanted to separate themselves with anything to do with the war,
Right.
which included wearing a uniform and wearing a hat.
Right.
So they jettisoned the hat as part of the severance of the World War II
Right.
memory. That's one. But again, there's never been any manner of, you know, comprehensive study as to why the hat died. It's just a field of conjecture. And so the World War II uniform was another one. And then one that seems to be, it's got more legs to it, and that's blaming the car.
Yes, I've meant yes.
You know, I think we've all heard that one.
Right.
Because
especially with crown heights, you know, even just the lowering of crown heights was something that has been posited for cars. Yeah.
Because with the boom after World War II was the real growth of the American car culture.
Right.
The designs were towards sleeker cars with lower profiles.
Yeah.
They didn't accommodate a hat as easily as, say, a Model T would.
Right.
And then the other thing is, again, purely speculative, is as the car culture grew, men spent more time in their cars.
Right.
Whereas before, they were not everybody wore a car, so you were out on the streets more, you were taking transit, you were walking more.
Right.
Then the car comes along, it's a bit of an impediment.
Yeah.
You take your hat off, and well, how much do you really need a hat when you're only when you're going from the car to your office, or from your driveway to your home?
Right.
So again, I think it's, you know, it's never the one thing. It's a series of little incremental, that one day we wake up and there's this, it's like, oh, people aren't wearing hats anymore.
Right.
And it seems like, oh my God, it just happened. And it's like, well, no, the fact is that it's been happening for 3 decades now.
Right.
It's just now manifest.
Yeah. 1903. That data says it right there. 1903.
And then to cap that off, there's a great a quote here, and it's from 1940 by the author Hilaire Belloc.
Yeah.
And in 1940 he was 70 years old. He was a British journalist.
Yeah.
Whose perceptions of society, and he was an observationalist writer.
Right.
Okay. Since things are dying all around us at such a rate as never was before, I wonder whether hats will not also die. Many say they are not necessarily, but mere ornamentation, whereas the Sphinx, addressing a traveler from Gaul who had no Greek, put her riddle thus. Oh, shoot.
Right.
It's in French, and I can't translate. I should have skipped that.
No, that's.
But but I can contest that view. A hat is necessary against the sun. It is even necessary against cold. Nevertheless, useful though it is, as well as decoration, the hat may well disappear. I, for one, should regret it, as I regret the passing of any custom or any tradition, for those are the furniture of human life.
Oh, wow. Very powerful. Wow.
Yeah. So here he is, 1940s, lamenting the passing of hat wearing.
Yeah. Wow.
And not just for all of the reasons, but just it's foundational. It's part of the furniture of his life.
Correct.
I thought that was quite.
Wow, that seems like that needs to hang up on the, that'd be something I'd hang up on the wall, just to see, like, get reminded with the date, just so it's like, this was a slow, steady process to getting to where we got to, even to the Kennedy administration, let alone today, modern day.
And it's interesting because it's given that part of my social circle now, even like online, but is with other hatters. Right. And so the conversation has often arisen that, are we witnessing a renaissance of hat wearing?
Maybe, right? So I'm going to posit something, and again, I have no data to base this on, right? So obviously, there has been renewed interest in selling exercise, right? Because for obvious reasons, right? We know that the automobile probably had something to do, as well as the rise in obesity rates, right? The kind of foods that we eat and our lack of actual exercise, right? Whereas we used to walk to work, or maybe taking public transport. When we got the car, all of a sudden, those were calories no longer burned, and now we were carrying an excess of body fat. And obviously, the food industry is another thing. I don't mean to like blame the food industry, but I know food isn't as healthy as it used to be, for a variety of reasons. But I feel like there is kind of a renewed industry on the fitness industry, right? So obviously, growing up in the 80s, one always remembers Richard Simmons, right? Richard Simmons was a fixture on infomercials. Obviously, we had Jane Fonda, and I believe it was Henry Fonda. Jack LaLanne. I want to say Jack LaLanne.
Yes.
Yeah.
He goes back even further. Jack was. Anyways, he was certainly in that cohort.
But you started seeing, right? Obviously, the Arnold Schwarzenegger and the whole bodybuilding industry, pumping iron, when that came out. So now all of a sudden, the new standard of what a male should look like started morphing, right? As obviously drugs were part of that, and steroids and all that. But essentially, you had a whole marketing machine that was morphing and starting to I want to say rejigger the mindset, I think, of their target, of their markets, right? Where all of a sudden now, whereas big hat used to be like, well, the hat makes the man. Well, now maybe Rolex and Omega are saying, no, the watch makes the man. And maybe the cologne industry, right? And that's like, no, the cologne, how you smell, that makes the man. So you're getting the consumer bombarded with a bunch of other messages that are trying to buy for their dollars. And now all of a sudden they're like, well, yeah, forget about the hat. Obviously the cost of the hat and the fact that technology, we talked about that from a standpoint of, and I always quote, I will try to quote you again on this, Robert, but it stays with me that when you talked about the hat business, you specifically mentioned this is the business that's very difficult to scale, right? So the idea is technology could be helpful, but even then, you're going to have an uphill battle to kind of really scale the hat business. So I got to imagine that because obviously technology is so disruptive, that because the hat industry was less susceptible to the benefits of, right, the cost reductions that come with technology, hats still either like stayed expensive and maybe got way more expensive. And now the value proposition was no longer there for a lot of the I want to say the up and coming class, right? So the idea of the U.S. as being anybody could make it, right? If you just work hard enough, right? Because that was the mindset post World War II is all you need is the desire. The opportunities out there. All you need is the desire. And obviously the marketing machines like capitalized on that. And I feel like the hat industry was less able, and again, this is completely conjecture. I feel like the hat industry was less able to capitalize on that machine. And they didn't have those levers that they could pull that a lot of the other industries had. And unfortunately, they suffered because of it.
Yeah, and it goes back to my point. I think we're dying industries don't have the profits to pour into marketing.
Right.
In the book, he talks about the automobile and pharmaceuticals,
right.
Both huge growth industries at post-war.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if he gives figures, but it's like the amount of money that big pharma was pouring into advertising.
Correct.
Swamped that of the hat manufacturers.
Right.
Why? It's like, well, because pharma had the profits. They had the money.
Correct.
Big hat didn't.
Right.
You know? So it's this the
confluence. I would use the term confluence of factors, right? And along with big pharma, I would just say just the chemical industry in general, right? Because we talked about, right? Remember Kennedy's coif? He had product in his hair. He didn't just wake up that way. He had product that allowed him to manicure his hair. And I gotta imagine that those dollars also that the disposable income that went into the let's say the fashionable man, they were now devoting more dollars to one, haircuts and hairstylists, not just a barber, but a hairstylist, and also hairstyling products like pomade. I just always think of pomade and hair gel because I feel like I don't know what Kennedy wore, but he had something in his hair. And that's something that the average man, if they're going to emulate, they're going to have to spend for that product.
And then maybe exacerbate the effect of hat head.
Correct. Now, so yeah, right. I'm going to spend all this money on a hat, and then my product is going to ruin it. We know that hat industry tried to counteract that with the hat tip liner, the plastic hat tip liner, but it wasn't enough. I don't think it was enough. Obviously, it wasn't enough. Yeah, obviously, we had a lot of manufacturers that went by the wayside, but you can see that they really tried to respond as best as they could. You can imagine that. I can't imagine that the hat tip liner, the plastic hat tip liner, reduced the cost. In my mind, they could have only increased the cost of a hat to be able to produce that and keep it on, and have it as part of your product.
And it's also, what's the axiom is like good gets better and bad gets worse.
Right.
And so you've got a dying, and I think this is true with, you've got the consolidation in the industry with,
right.
way with Stetson going bankrupt, and then the new owners buying out. They buying out Resistol and Bayer Rolnick, and then like the small guys that maybe their niche was a quality hat at a better price. It's like, so all those little guys in Connecticut started dying off, and you're left with the big boys,
right,
through consolidation. And then it becomes, they're chasing profits, right? They're chasing diminishing profits. And so how do you increase profits? And oftentimes, in a mass industry, is you start looking to cut corners, right? You start looking to cut your production costs. And, so you've got into the 70s where like hats were shit.
A death spiral.
Truly a death spiral where the prices weren't going down, but the quality produced just was increasingly poorer and poorer. And so it's kind of like, it's that it's a true spiral, and there is no, I don't think like there's no way out of it.
And I'd hate to be pessimistic because I pride myself on my optimism. I think the only, like, if I had to conjecture on a point of optimism, I can only because we know there's a lot of guys in this hat subculture. Obviously we saw that we talked about it earlier about the heyday of the muscle car era. We did see a resurgence in the last couple decades of the muscle car. I don't know how far flung it was, definitely within the US. Let's just say, I'm just going to go on a limb and say North America, because maybe you can speak to that in terms of Canada, Robert. But in the US, we definitely saw a resurgence in the last couple of decades. Even though we were becoming more environmentally friendly, we had Dodge release the Dodge Challenger, which had that kind of that retro look. And then the horsepower wars kicked up again. We had GM, Dodge, and Ford like kicking up the horsepower wars, where we had the Mustang, the Camaro, and the Challenger, and also the Charger competing. Right. I got a buddy that has 1,000 horsepower Challenger. I'm like, 1,000 horsepower from a stock car. That's unheard of. Like even in the muscle car, era, in the heyday. So obviously technology is part of that as well. And that doesn't happen if we don't keep the cost of gasoline or petrol, as you folks in the UK might say. Right. There's got to be a confluence of factors that allow that to happen. Right. So manufacturers have to be convinced that the market exists for that, where people are going to pony up. So that doesn't happen unless there's some prosperity or some sort of reason for people to want to loosen up their purse strings. But again, I feel like that's another thing in or against the hat industry, because if you're spending, let's say $1,000 for your car payment, well, you're going to be less likely to want to pony up $300 or $400 or $500 for like an Optimo. Well, when you got $1,000 car note, it's just something's got to give.
Okay, so I think there's an interesting argument to be had within that.
Yeah.
In that, yes, those muscle cars made an appearance up in Canada.
Right.
And I think a comparison can be made between that and the hat market.
Okay.
In that, at least up here in Canada, that muscle car market was a niche market.
Niche, correct.
They didn't sell very many units, and it was almost I don't know what you call it, like a vanity project for the manufacturer. To have like one model that paid tribute to the muscle car. And I think so, going back to my question about, is there a resurgence on hats? And it's yes and no is the honest answer. Yes, because there's certainly more hat makers, people like me now. It's like when I started in Vancouver, as far as I know, I was the only one.
Yeah.
Now there's 7 of us.
Right.
So, but having said that, it's still a niche market, and a very
Right.
narrow niche market, because okay, granted, I don't I go downtown every couple of weeks. I live about 40 minutes outside the heart of the city.
Right.
So I'm, I'm not in the heart of it by a long shot, but you still see very, 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 very few hats
Right.
out on the street.
Yeah.
And even fewer of that are quality hats.
Right.
Most of them are the hats you see are mass produced.
Right.
A lot of wool. I think I mentioned it last episode. The only hat shop in the city pretty much caters to the tourist market. They sell low end. It's just it's just not a thing.
Right.
It's in terms of, oh my God, men are wearing hats again. It's like, no,
Right.
they're not. They're not.
Right. Yeah. As much as we like to think so, it's going to be an uphill battle. And Josh mentions here, Yellowstone has brought the cowboy hat back. And I'm going to claim ignorance here. I believe Yellowstone's a TV show, but I could be wrong.
Yes, and I that's another thought I want to have, and it's something that I've noticed that I joke that okay, backing it up, there was a Canadian hatter out of Toronto who was also mentored by Art Fawcett. Stephen Temkin, whose brand was Leon Drexler. And I was a customer of his. I own 2 of his hats, or 3 now. And a true, a wonderful hatter. His attention to detail is incredible. And he retired. And I don't know for certain. I think he retired due to, I know he was having trouble with carpal tunnel in his forearms and wrists. Because he's certainly not as old as I am. So, he retired far too early. So, and after he retired, he was willing and able. I would run questions by him. So I never met him in person, and he never mentored me, but he certainly was really willing to answer any question I had. And it was, so in a sense, I'm a second generation removed from Art Fawcett as well.
Still pretty fine company.
So when he retired, when Stephen Temkin retired, I would jokingly claim that I was Canada's preeminent classic fedora maker. And I could in all good faith make that statement because I was the only one.
Right.
And then and then through Instagram, I started conversing with a new hatter in Ontario, Dante Bolatti.
Right.
And he is a classic fedora maker. And I sent him an email giving him shit because it's like, you've taken away my title.
Right. Encroach on your turf.
And it's like, and he said, well, no, I'm just starting out. And I said, yeah, but I said, I don't know, you might be better than me, so I can no longer state in good faith that I'm the best, because it's like, because now there's 2 of us.
Right.
And you think, I mean, there's 40 million of us in Canada.
Right.
It's and there's only 2 of us. And the good news is he's moved to Barcelona, so I've got my title back.
Wow. Well, there you go. You might have scared him away. You're like, you know what? You're better off because I'll exile you to Barcelona. I love Barcelona. I mean, Madrid's more my city, but I do like Barcelona as well. Not too shabby.
Yeah, not a bad place to.
Correct.
But anyways, it's so I'm still the only classic fedora maker in the whole damn country. So it's like. The resurgence of hat wearing can't can't beat that. Because it's
Right.
like I make 110 hats a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
To me, that sounds like a lot. That just sounds like you got 100 magic tricks that you performed this year. It sounds like a lot to me.
but when you think about it, it's like, yeah, and there's 40 million people in the country,
Yeah.
and probably 75% of my hats go down to the States. So when you put the two populations together, it's like there's 400 million people there, and I've sold 500 hats.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the other question I want to put out is that so it's certainly true for Canada, and anecdotally, looking at the Facebook page we have for custom hat makers,
right,
there's still very few classic fedora makers on the site. Most of the newbies
are the festival hat, the art hats, the festival hats,
and then the true Western.
Right.
So it seems that, and then I've also noticed, Paul, in hat makers out of the UK through Instagram, there's a resurgence of Western hat styles there, like Sierra and South. It seems all of his output now is Western oriented.
Yeah. At the very least, the hybrid, right? The open road, which is in many views is kind of like a hybrid fedora, Western inspired. You know what I mean? Obviously, Paul favors that style. He's a huge fan. Actually, looks really good on him. Many times I was like, it's hard to kind of picture Paul without the open road. He does really love that style. It looks good on him. It just fits his frame. But yeah, I'd imagine that again, these trends, now that we are living obviously in a global community, right? With obviously the power of the internet and social media, I think the power of trends starting somewhere way different and then catching on elsewhere is very possible. So maybe that's the outlet if it is, but I'm not a betting man, and I wouldn't certainly bet on this. Yeah, Paul says, yes, there is renewed interest in the Western, open road, and festival style hats. Yeah. And I'll get to look for myself as well. I'll be on a plane pretty soon. And Josh says, we need a good show that showcases dress hats. That's an interesting proposition. The idea of a fashion show, right? We know that hats obviously do make their way to the runway, but I feel like it's more the exception rather than the norm. But that would be a way to kind of normalize, hey, your outfit would not be complete if you didn't have a fine hat. You just need somebody to really get behind that notion. And I feel like if the market research supports it, which it may not, that means if it probably has been done and they said, no, it's not worth the expenditures given the market. But sometimes you get a stubborn person, and God bless those stubborn people, because sometimes they're like, I will do it and I will show you. You'll see. And I'm like, you can't let somebody like me poo-poo something, because what do I know? If it was up to me, maybe we'd never see the next Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or whoever is doing big things or has done big things recently. Paul says, have sold one open road, a Hamburg, a festival hat, and a fedora hat this week. So fairly spread. That's interesting statistic right there. Obviously a sample of one hatter here, but those are 4 hats and very different hats.
Yeah, just it strikes me, and I was just wondering if there's a renewed interest in Americana.
Yeah.
Amongst the Brits, because it's like you got an established hatter like Sierra and South,
right?
And so far, lately, his entire output has been Western hats, and it strikes me as being well, again, it brings me back to the question: who the hell are wearing these hats in Britain? It seems that. So, is there a renewed interest in all things American within Britain?
And back to your point, are they just buying them, or are they wearing them? Are they buying them and wearing them? And
did they buy them to go to Glastonbury and then they're back on the shelf?
Correct.
For another 300. It's like it's so curious. I'm going to go visit Jackson Howell tomorrow.
Oh, nice.
He's a festival hat maker here in Vancouver. He's just he's moved out of his house and into a studio. So I'm gonna go check out his studio. But
is he also in Canada, Robert?
Yeah, he's in Vancouver proper.
All right.
And he's been in business about the same amount of time as me. He came shortly after, but we are in two totally different markets in that he's much more in the artsy crowd, and he makes the festival style hattings.
Right.
So we do not compete at all.
Yeah. And Paul adds here, I do find once I meet with people, they sometimes change their mind on style and are open to other shapes. I feel like that's when the hatter can really work some magic, even if it's just the brim, right? So Robert was really had, I think, great advice for those hatters that are trying to like give permission to those customers, again, not to kind of like force them, but essentially kind of allow them, give them permission to explore those wider brims. And you know, you have to kind of use a little psychology, but it can be done. Paul says, yes, it's possibly the music scene, as I have a few musicians now buying those festival hats. Makes sense. That does make sense.
Yeah. I think it's a great story. I sold a hat, custom hat, to a fellow in Florida. This was his first custom hat. He was a little bit nervous about the process, and we walked through, and he wanted something more trilby-like. Right. And so his spec was 4 1/4 on the brim, on the crown, and 2 3/8. Well, he wanted 2 1/4, and I did my best to bump him up to 2 1/2.
Yeah.
And it was a no-go, and the best we could do, he agreed to 2 3/8.
Yeah.
And so I made him the hat, shipped it to him. About a month later, he got back to me and he said, Robert, he says, I should have listened to you. This hat would have looked so much better with a wider brim.
Right.
And he said, and I felt really bad for him because this was his first custom hat, you know, and it was a 95-gram FEPSA. So, you know, it wasn't cheap.
It wasn't a cheapie.
So I don't know how you feel about this, Paul, but I have an evangelical bent around hatting, and it's like not only am I a hat maker, but it's like I take it on that I'm responsible for people's hatting experience. You know, I take that as a responsibility. So anyways, I told the customer, I said, you send it back to me, you pay the shipping back to me, and I'll rework your hat.
Yeah.
So he sent it back, and I changed the blocking a little bit. I used a block with just a little bit more taper, less pronounced shoulders on it, and I got him a fat 2 1/2-inch brim.
Yeah.
Without sacrificing any of the crown, and I shipped it back to him, and so now he has a hat that he loves.
Yeah.
But it was just, we're talking a fat 1/8 of an inch difference in the brim.
Yeah.
But he had to go through the experience before he came back to me, and he said, "You're right."
Experience is the best teacher.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. And I love that you're kind of like you kind of see yourself as almost like a hat dad, right? It's kind of like, I'm gonna take you under my wing. You're gonna benefit from my wisdom, my X number of years of experience, but ultimately I'll let you do what you're gonna do. I'll come back later and help you out either way. I love that. There's such a beautiful thing about that. It's kind of a very, again, I hopefully none of our female viewers view this. I view it as a very paternalistic. And I can't help it because I'm a dad. I just view it as a kind of like being a hat dad, you know? I
don't know. I take it as like, the guy dropped $500 on this hat.
Yeah.
And he's now wearing a hat that he sort of likes, you know, he kind of loves it. And it's
Yeah.
like, I know if I put myself in his shoes, I'd be kicking my ass around the block, thinking,
Right.
oh crap.
Yeah.
I could have had a hat that I love, and
Right.
now I have one that, yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's like, so now, um, I had to rebuild the hat. So it
Yeah.
took me another 6 hours, but the reward is I get the satisfaction of it, because here's a guy now, he has a hat. He loves the hat.
Right.
He
Right.
lives in Florida. So chances are I'm not going to get any additional business out of it,
Yeah.
but it's like,
You might, I mean, you might, I mean,
you
because
might,
for me,
yeah,
yeah.
you never know, but it's like, I'm satisfied.
Yeah, I love that. That's a way. I mean, again, and I, obviously, not. I'm sure there are hatters that don't do that, but for me, I'm really glad because again, you're putting yourself in the place of your customer and kind of viewing it from their angle, right? They, for obviously a lot of us, we have so many hats, we would never be, too hung up on any one hat because, well, we have so many. But for a lot of these folks that this might be their milestone hat, it really does pay. It kind of takes a little bit of the edge off when you have a situation where now, instead of asking you, Robert, you're offering those customers the opportunity to kind of make sure that they don't have any buyer's remorse. And there's something really special about that.
Yeah. And I mean, and granted, I mean, I might have a different attitude because all I have to sell is my time.
Right.
So,
right.
If I had a mortgage to pay,
correct,
and I had to make, I have to sell this hat it's like,
right,
because there's only so many hours in the day, and it's like, it might, well, it would color my thinking, but
yeah.
I'm in the position that I'm good, so
yeah, I love it.
I can indulge my feelings.
Yeah, you're paying it forward, and that's really the most beautiful thing about that situation. And I'm sure Paul has stories very similar. And again, I think it's an example. The reason why I love that we have this on video is that maybe, just maybe, I know we had Josh, he's a young hatter, but there might be somebody that watches this down maybe a year from now or 2 years from now and starts thinking about wanting to get into this. And hopefully this can kind of give them some ideas of how the kind of hatter they want to be. And the more, for me, there could never be enough of hatters like yourself, Robert, and Paul and Josh, Brian, all the folks here that kind of do it, and obviously none of you guys are exactly the same. You guys have your own style, but I feel like you guys all do your part to kind of like pay it forward. And it's a beautiful thing to see. And I'm really proud that you guys are part of the community.
I think one of the things that, and I tell new hatters this as often as I'm given the opportunity, is it's like that it's such an important step to come to terms with, like, who am I as a hatter?
Yeah.
And the other aspect is, and what is it that I'm bringing to the market?
Right.
Why would
why me?
Why me? Why would, because of all of the the number of custom hat makers across North America, I think it's staggering.
Right.
If you include the Western hat makers, which probably outnumber the classic fedoras, 10 to 1, if not more.
Yeah.
But it's like, why would they buy from me?
Right.
And not the guy that's been in business for a decade that has this impeccable track record.
Right.
Why? And it becomes even more necessary as new hatters, once you get past making hats for family and friends.
Yeah.
Okay, who are you going to sell to now?
Right.
And the one thing that I've noticed, particularly on the Facebook page, is, and I find it really disconcerting, is the number of new hat makers that take their product to market when the finished product is so far from ready,
Right.
it's
Right.
gobsmacking.
Right.
And I think there's a trap in that, because when you look at the steps in the making of a hat, it's a simple process.
Right.
It ain't rocket science.
Right.
But there's a certain degree of of finesse and fineness
Right.
that really
Correct.
only you can't look at a picture on a screen and discern whether it's a well-made hat or not,
Right.
unless it's absolutely terrible and the
Right.
flaws are glaring.
Right.
But it's something you have to look at, you have to hold, you have to inspect.
Right.
And then the other thing is, a lot of new hatters aren't hat people.
Right.
They don't own a well-made hat.
Right.
They've never commissioned a custom hat.
Right.
So therefore, how do they know what a good hat looks like?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
had
Very good point.
this discussion with the guy on the Facebook page, and he was after feedback.
Right.
And it's like the only way really to get better, unless you're able to find a mentor, is
Right.
you have to become your own toughest critic.
Yes.
And so the guy responded and says, well, I just need experience.
Right.
So I said, but if you're not clear on what the standard is, what good will experience do you?
Right. Yeah, it's a fair point.
To what standard are you aspiring?
Right.
Well, he has no standard because he doesn't know what a good custom hat looks like.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So it's, there really is a trap. So they think that it's like, because I mean, sure, you can make a hat that looks like a hat.
Right.
Your first time.
Right.
Think, I got this.
It's like your first project in woodshop.
Yeah, it's like this.
I know, because I'm like, I had the worst looking. I'm like, I was embarrassed. I'm like, I'm sorry. If you failed me, I wouldn't blame you. My teacher was very nice. I was like, my only saving grace is I kept my digits.
I do have. There's one other anecdote.
Sure.
From the book that I think is really. I thought it was great fun. So if we have the time, I think it would be good to cover it.
Yeah.
And that is that things haven't changed all that much for those of us who wear hats out in public. And it's like when you go to a restaurant, what do you do with your hat?
Yeah.
Well, that's always been the case.
Right.
It's not new. And for the longest time, it's like, well, restaurants would have cloakrooms.
Right.
Men would wear their wool or their cashmere coats, and so you'd hang your coat and your hat, and you'd go into the restaurant.
Right.
Things weren't that much different back then. There's an opportunity for theft.
Yeah.
And it was very common. And one of the scams would be you would wear a beater hat into the restaurant.
Yeah.
And you'd walk out with a nice new hat.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so no one's going to question you.
Right.
And you had an automatic out. If somebody challenged you and said, hey, that's my hat, you could just plead ignorance. And it's like, oh,
right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It looks just like mine.
Yeah, it looks just like where's mine? You know? So it's like, and it was rampant.
Right.
So there was a trend. People wanted to keep their hat with them.
Right.
And so they would take their hat into the restaurant with them and place it wherever they could. And they would place it on a chair or Men had walking sticks back then, and they'd prop the walking stick against the table. And so there was a man by the name of Harry Susskind.
Yeah.
And this was in New York City. And he was walking by a restaurant called Churchill's.
Okay.
And he looked in the window, and he was just observing, and he noticed that there were hats and canes propped everywhere.
Yeah.
And he had the thought, it was a very busy restaurant, very popular restaurant.
Right.
And he thought, those hats are taking up an inordinate amount of room, and that's costing the owner money.
Okay.
So the guy, Harry Susskind, went to the owner of the restaurant and gave him a proposition that if you allow me to set up a hat check stand at the entrance of your restaurant, I will pay you $3,000 for the right.
Wow. Wow.
The restaurateur jumped at it.
Yeah.
It solved a problem for him, and he got money for it. So that was the very first hat check.
Hat check.
And
wow.
Susskind was also astute enough to know that there would be huge resistance if he charged money for it.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you were used to either putting your hat in the cloakroom or taking it with you, and it didn't cost you any money. And now all of a sudden I got to pay to check my hat.
Right.
So he thought, in order to overcome that resistance, it's tip based.
Yeah.
You leave a tip.
Right. Wow.
But I guess I don't know. You might. I've never been to New York other than LaGuardia, so.
I mean, I'm from New York, except that I've never, obviously, given my my age, I'm guessing or maybe also my socioeconomic status when I was in New York, that I never had a place that I had a hat check, but I'm just awing at just kind of the brilliance, right? The idea, right? Everybody talks about solving a problem.
Absolutely, and so. So my reference to New York is that so it was tip based, it was voluntary, but being New York, that voluntary aspect soon morphed, and the term they used for it was polite banditry, because if you tried to bypass the hat check stand and carry your hat into the restaurant,
right,
you would very soon be followed by a hat check person,
right,
with a claim tag in one hand, and they'd grab your hat with the other, no questioning. They'd grab your hat and they'd hand you the hat check.
Wow.
And they'd walk away. So there was, so even though it was voluntary, it soon became mandatory.
Right.
And then the other part was, you got to love New York.
Indeed.
If the tip wasn't deemed high enough, they would have a very hard time locating your hat.
That sounds like New York.
And if you piss them off enough, they might not find your hat at all.
There you go. This is why it's one of those, like I said, obviously the tipping cultures vary from country to country. I think I can speak safely for all of the U.S. and I'm sure Canada. Tipping culture is definitely alive and well. And not that I'm trying to justify anyone getting their stuff misplaced, for lack of a better term. You kind of want to make sure, especially if it's a place that you frequent, you want to kind of develop a reputation of, if not generous, at least appropriate tipping, because otherwise you might lose your hat.
Yeah, you might. It's like it might mysteriously disappear. But so that was Harry Suskind's first location, and it was so successful that he began taking that model and applying it to multiple restaurants.
Yeah.
His two brothers joined him in the venture, and they both all three of them became very wealthy.
Wow.
Just from tips. And it grew to it was so lucrative that there were now bidding wars to buy the concessions, and it became, so this is in the 30s and 40s, when nightclubs were really popular, and there were new nightclubs popping up, and it became a way of actually financing a nightclub, because as the entrepreneur, the first thing you would do is you would sell the hat check concession, and they would go up upwards of $100,000.
Right.
So the entrepreneurs would then take that $100,000 cash and use that as seed money to build the nightclub.
Wow. Wow.
Now, when you're dealing with an all cash business, the nightclub scene, it was a natural attractant to the mob.
Right. Yeah.
And so soon the mob got involved, and it also gave them a leg up because they were in the door.
Yeah.
And if the restaurant, the restaurant or the nightclub started to falter, they were there with cash to buy out the owners pennies on the dollar.
Right.
So they'd parlayed their hat check into owning the actual nightclub.
Yeah.
But the hat check became such a ubiquitous thing that hat check girls became sort of minor celebrities.
Yeah.
They were there, and the joke was that they were I don't have it. I'll find it later. But they didn't get the tips.
Right.
They were just on an hourly basis, and it wasn't that great of a job. So their status as celebrities was because all of the tips went to the owner, not to the girls. And so, but that was the girl's job, was to cultivate relationships and be sweet and be alluring.
Very important if you think about it.
Yep.
Wow.
But it became so ubiquitous that it was expensive to own a hat and be out and about. So there was a newspaper writer. His name was Hy Gardner. He wrote for one of the major newspapers.
Yeah.
And he was a guy, sort of a entertainment columnist. And so he spent his days out and about, restaurants, nightclubs, and it was like he was always paying for his hat. And one day he thought, I should track the expense. So he bought a brand new hat in 1938, paid $3.75 for it.
Right.
And then he kept a piece of ticker tape in the band.
Right.
And he kept track of his tips.
Yep.
And he found at the end of so it's $3.75 hat.
Right.
At the end of 6 months, he put out $138.25.
Wow.
And
so the cost of the hat was a drop in the bucket in the long run.
And so he started to have the thought, and it's like, well, why am I spending all of this money to protect a $3.75 hat? It makes no sense. It's like, if they steal it, so what?
Right.
But he also claimed that he as soon as he tallied it up, and he was shocked at how much, he never wore a hat again.
Wow.
He parked his hat forever. So that could be apocryphal. I don't know.
Getting back to the economics.
And then so the story also said that Mr. Gardner was a gadabout, and he wasn't your average person.
Right.
So they tracked a businessman, And if the businessman were a generous tipper, he would tip $10 in a 3-month period.
Yeah.
So 2.5 times the price of the hat in 3 months. But if he was a frugal tipper, it would be $10 in 6 months, which is a little bit more
but still not insignificant.
Not insignificant when you're talking about, a $4 hat.
Right.
And so that was also thrown out as a reason for the decline in hat wearing.
Yeah.
But the argument against that is, it's like, well, there was also coat checks that cost you money.
Right.
And that didn't kill the wearing of coats.
Right.
So it's like,
yeah. So obviously the moral of the story is that there's a confluence, a multitude of multifaceted reasons that led to the current demise. It wasn't poor old Jack.
Yeah. Whatever the reason,
yeah,
reasons, you can't lay it at the feet of JFK.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to finish.
Sure.
There's I've got a quote here from a promotional material from the Mallory Hat Company.
Oh, great.
It was actually written by the president, and it was their I don't know, their tagline for many years, and it's, "Your hat is you." And that, it's like your hat is an integral part, not just of your wardrobe,
right,
but your persona, your, how you present to the world,
your identity.
And the material goes on to say, "Your hat, by its quality and individuality, its poise and pitch, its angle and droop, can be made to take on as many varying moods as the fact underneath. It either condemns or commends you. It bestows characters or becomes caricature. Hence, it should not be selected at random, but chosen with care. It should be a reflection of the wearer's taste, position, and personality."
Oh, wow.
And then the last is a marketing slogan that Stetson used for many years. "The Stetson is part of the man."
There you go.
So
they kept it really simple for the everyman. They're like, well, elegance. Are you a man? I love it.
Yeah,
I love the marketing. Me and Brad always, really geek out over some of the, obviously the evolution of marketing. Obviously, when a lot of these, just like the muscle car was marketed to the male consumer. Obviously, at that point, females were not in the workforce. They were not the ones that were buying these cars. So you got really a lot of the marketing levers that were being pulled about questioning your manhood. If you didn't have this car, it's like, well, maybe some guys don't need permission from their wives. A lot of these things that obviously would not go over so well in modern day, but they really were the bread and butter for a lot of the marketers, to be able to try to get anybody to kind of pull that trigger. And you might see it in a lot of negotiations to this day. I know I remember negotiating a car years ago, and when I balked at making the purchase, the general manager questioned my manhood. He said, "What? You don't wear the pants in your house?" I was like, wow, I was really taken aback by it. I was like, I kept my cool, but at the same time, I'm like, wow. And they wouldn't do it if it didn't work.
Yeah. Yes. That's the evidence, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So, Robert, wow. I thank you so much for all that content. Like, I think we generated such a great discussion here. Obviously, if for the audience that hasn't read the book, this is called Hatless Jack. It is by Neil Steinberg. And I believe what I've seen is mostly paperbacks, and they're like in that $10 to $15 range.
Yes. Yeah. All the ones I saw on eBay and Amazon are their paperbacks.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, I want to thank all of you guys. Obviously, Paul, Josh, James, and everybody else that joined us during the live stream. Robert, again, I want to thank you for sharing your time and your knowledge with us. Again, I feel like this is gonna kind of start greasing the wheels for further, future discussions. And then once I'm really an audiobook guy. But if I'm able to make this happen, I will try to go and make this book happen. It seems like a manageable read, only because I feel like it's gonna have benefits for a lot of future streams.
It's if you take it. I mean, I didn't read the bio until after I'd read the book, where it described him as he's a newspaper columnist.
Yeah.
So if you take the book, not even chapter by chapter, but like partial chapter by it's like reading a newspaper column. It's breezy, it's chatty, so you could read it over the course of 2 weeks and just kind of enjoy each section unto itself.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to close us out here, and I'm going to say I put down Robert's information. Obviously, as you guys have read it from the description, Robert is the sole proprietor of Wolfbrae Custom Hatters. You can find him on Instagram. You can find him on Facebook. And feel free to support Robert in everything in his hat making. In any which way, right? If you've happened to run across one of Robert's videos, make sure you drop him a line and thank him, right? I think that a little bit of that goes a long way toward keeping Robert putting out such a great content, right? He writes the columns. We need that. We not just want it, we need it in our hat community. So Robert, thank you again for joining us.
You're welcome. And just let me say, if any questions arise, feel free. You can contact me through probably Instagram is the best way. But if you have a question, shoot me a line. I don't mind answering questions at all.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert. And then I'm going to say, support Robert, support this channel, support all the hatters and hat aficionados that come by the channel. But you know where I'm going with this. Even if you don't support the channel, even if you don't support anybody, the one thing you got to do, unless like what you don't want is the ghost of Hatless Jack to come after you, and not to do anything to you, but maybe to just tell you, hey, don't blame the demise of hats on me, please. You've been educated, right? But if anything, the one thing you got to do is stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day, everybody. Ciao. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.